What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best Gemling Legionnaire builds in Path of Exile 2. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. So this is an endgame build that utilizes the power of the attribute stacking to increase its performance. Our main goal is to stack as much strength, dexterity and intelligence as possible, to then scale it with our unique items such as the Pillar of the God and the Hand of Wisdom and the Action. One of the best things about our setup is that all it needs to function at the start is the Pillar of the Caged God, which is pretty affordable on a budget, but then later on we can scale it incredibly high with each unique item and massive power upgrades and much more. Our main playstyle will revolve around using the Tempest flurry in the combination with the charged staff that can hit multiple times and create lightning shockwaves. If you want to zoom through the maps insanely fast while destroying anything and everyone that crosses your path, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the Gemling Legionnaire. Then for the first skill we have the Tempest flurry with the support gems such as the martial tempo, inspiration, glaciation and the ice bite. Then second we get the charged staff with the primal armament, lightning infusion, overcharge and the concentrated effect. Then next we got the Tempest belt with the concentrated effect, over abundance, elemental focus and the close combat. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the blind, maim and the pin. Next up we have the Herald of the Ice with magnified effect, lightning infusion, primal armament and the elemental focus. Next we got the Combat Frenzy with the profusion. And finally, for the last one we are using the Glacial Cascade with no support gems. Most of the setup is structured around using the Tempest Fury and the Charged Staff to delete huge amount of enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Also, at this point I would usually show you a leveling build, but this time our particular setup is specifically meant for only endgame, because it will only start working when we get the quarterstaff called the Pillar of the Caged God. So until that point I would recommend to use my cheap gas grenade build, which link you can find in the description and on this website. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this armor and evasion node. Then go like this while also grabbing the battle hardened and the relentless. Then from here keep on moving while also on our way getting these two, and also the beef. Then afterwards we go like this, and then here at the end we want to go up top and get this blood magic. We want to use this specific node because scaling mana and handling mana cost is expensive, while maintaining very high tankiness, so this is a great keystone to solve any potential mana problem. Then after this, we now want to circle back and this time go to the bottom and get this brute strength. And then as you can see from here, the whole path pretty much just goes in a straight line, so just follow it while also grabbing everything that you can see right here. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you don't need to get these two, so the lightning rod and the flash storm, if you still haven't equipped the hands of the wisdom and action. And then from here, the most important nodes and the ones we want to get is the storm and the river, as they increase our evasion rating while also letting the freeze to build up faster for more consistent explosions with the Herald of the Ice. And on top of this, it also makes keeping up our charged staff much easier, by giving it an extra duration when consuming a single power charge, since it counts as using an extra charge. And then finally, the last most important part is the resonance, as it is one of the core nodes of our build. It will convert the frenzy charges gained from the combat frenzy into the power charges, which will allow us to cast our insane charged staff. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to get the adaptive capability, then second get the enhanced effectiveness. Because of how many attributes we will stack, this node will grant us a massive amount of life early on. With about 500 strength, this node will result in more than 1000 extra life. Then for the third one we want to get the integrated efficiency. And then finally for the last one we get the gem studded, which is another powerful node. If we don't get this one, then our build will run out of the effective support gems. So we want to get it to not only increase our DPS, but also to create the bigger explosions by using the Herald of the Ice. So feel free to use the exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website. And this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next up we have our Atlas passives. So when we start we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes. until we get this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we want to circle back to the middle, and this time go up top, until we get to the second keystone called the Corrupted Infusion. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives. Which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter, so this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have the Lyrium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Pillar of the Caged God. This is relatively cheap and common item, however in the early game we want to use the Glacial Rune or the Storm Rune to increase its flat damage output even more. On top of this, if you get lucky enough, then you can also find this quarterstaff with 3 sockets. Then for the helmet we have the 3 dragons. And after you get the Hands of the Wisdom in action, then this is the third priority that you should get, as it is mandatory to ensure that you are freezing enemies for a massive Herald of the Ice explosion. Then for the chest we have the Warrior Invictus. This is another powerful item, but this time not mandatory whatsoever, so use this one or anything similar. And for stats we want to focus on increased evasion, more to strength, dexterity and intelligence, and more resistances like fire, cold, lightning and chaos. Then for the belt we have the double belt with increased charm charges. And for bonus stats we want max life, more to strength and chaos and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Hand of the Wisdom in action. This should be the second item that you prioritize after our weapon, as it is another core part of our build, and will enable us to stack our attributes and increase DPS by a massive amount. Then for the boots we're using the advanced hunting shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, more to dexterity and fire and cold resistance. Then for first and second ring we got the same one called the Prismatic Ring, with more to all elemental resistances. And for more we want adds fire or cold damage to attacks, and more strength, dexterity and intelligence. And then finally for the amulet we have Amber Amulet with strength. And for more we want more to all attributes, more to strength and intelligence. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best setup in the endgame, and if you only can afford few things, then I would recommend to prioritize the weapon, then the gloves, and finally the headpiece. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for maps and AoV farming, we simply want to spam our Tempest flurry while making sure to maintain the charge staff for as long as possible. However, then for single targets and boss fights, we want to start by attacking with the Tempest flurry to generate combo stacks. So then we use our Tempest belt and then continue attacking with the Tempest flurry. This combo will freeze the bell and generate a power charge. So then afterwards we use our power charge by casting the charge staff. So then once the charge staff is active, we want to continue attacking the target with the Tempest Fury and replace the Tempest Bell whenever it goes down. This setup is known as the Grenade Gemling Legionnaire build that detonates gas grenades with a variety of detonator skills, such as the Explosive Shot or the Explosive Grenade, to create screen-wide explosions that can one-shot massive amounts of enemy groups. Offensively, we will be using the Gem-Studded Ascendancy, which will allow us to use 2 copies of any support gem, which greatly will improve our clear speed, utility, and single target damage. And then defensively, we get access to efficient armor evasion scaling, life recovery, and maximum resistance scaling or strength stacking. So when we combine all of this, we then can create this amazing build that has insane clearing speed and with this type of run and gun playstyle. So let me show you the build. And for the main class, we have the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the Gemling Legionnaire. Then for the first skill, we have the gas grenade with support gems such as the scatter shot, elemental focus, magnified effect, payload, and fire infusion. Then second, we got the explosive shot with fast forward, primal armament, magnified effect, and payload. Then next we got the oil grenade with encumbrance, strip away, maim, and the spoiler. Next we have the explosive shot with nimble reload, martial tempo, and the Soul Thief. Next we are also using the flash grenade with the Soul Thief, overpower, discombobulate, and the heft. Next we have the artillery ballista with ancestral urgency, fount of rage, and the fount of mana. Then we got the wind dancer with the clarity, cannibalism, and the precision. And finally, for our last one, we got the alchemist boon with no support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the grenades to instantly delete enemies, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their area and damage. while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and make our way like this until we get the Remorseless and the Volatile Cataclysm. Then now we continue going down here and only stop at this circle, and then we get this entire thing except this one single node. Then from here we continue making our way till this point, and then where this path splits we want to take the left, and then get these two called the Authority and the Crushing Judgment. Then afterwards we want to circle back a little and get all of these nodes that you can see right here. And then from this point and onwards we can make our way to the left side and get the rest of these nodes by using the same and exact path. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Integrated Efficiency. Then next we take this, the Gem Studded, which will massively improve our build by giving us the option to use two same type of copy support gems. Then next we want to get the Thaumatic Infusion, that increases maximum cold, fire and lightning resistances. And then lastly we will take the Adaptive Capability, as most players can run into a gem attribute requirement problem, so we can solve it by getting this node. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to definitely pay off later. So feel free to use this exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in the rituals. So then when we start we want to first of all get this bottom left side like this, then now we want to go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to this top middle / top left side and get the rest of these passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Advanced Bombard Crossbow. This is the most important item as you want to acquire a high physical damage crossbow, ideally on this Advanced Bombard Crossbow, or as well you could get it on the Expert Bombard Crossbow, for grenade skills firing an additional projectile. But with that said, if you got a different high physical damage crossbow on another item, then that can work as well, only if the damage is high enough. Then for the helmet we want the Advanced Spired Great Helm with armor, and for more stats we want accuracy, even more increased armor and max life. For our main gear we want to get good armor and evasion, and all type of resistances, so then we could cap our resistances at least 75%. Then for the chest we have the Expert Rogue Armor with armor and evasion, and for bonus stats we get max life, more armor and evasion, max life and cold resistance. Then for the belt we have the Utility Belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And for bonus stats we want more armor, max life and resistances like fire or lightning. Then for the gloves we got the Expert Layered Gauntlets with max life, max mana, more strength and lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the Advanced Mail Sabotans with armor and evasion. And for bonus stats it's required that you get some type of movement speed and resistances like cold or chaos. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance, and for more we want the physical damage, max life and max mana. While on the second one we got the Prismatic Ring with percentage to all elemental resistances, and for bonuses we want max life, more accuracy and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Lunar Amulet with max energy shield, and for more we want the increased spell damage, more armor and increased critical hit chance. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our detonator skills are the Explosive Shot or the Explosive Grenade, as they are used to detonate the poisonous clouds into the fiery explosions. Then we got the Oil Grenade, which applies a fire exposure and slows down a quick moving enemy. Then we got the Flash Grenade that blinds, stuns and shocks back swarming enemies. Then we also got the Wind Dancer, which will provide a 68% more evasion rating at the 4 Gale 4 stages. And finally, we use the Ghost Dance with energy shield gear for additional defense versus a hard enemy encounter. So the general gameplay loop of this build is to fire as many gas grenades as necessary towards the target to create a poison cloud. Then next we want to detonate these poison clouds with either the explosive shot or the explosive grenade. So for more damage we use the explosive grenade, and for a quick explosion or to target the edge of the screen poison cloud, then use the explosive shot instead. Also, when you are surrounded or to preemptively stun and blind enemies, you can use the flash grenade. In boss fights, using a flash grenade will stagger and interrupt dangerous abilities, which has saved me many times from dying. This setup is known as the Toxic Poison build, where we are going to be dealing insane amount of damage with just the poison effects alone. Our playstyle is structured around specializing in dealing damage almost exclusively by the Plague Barrier, Gas Arrow and the Sniper, and because of our skill tree and the gear, we are going to be deleting trash enemies in split seconds. However, what I really like about this build is the fast speed farming potential, as you can keep moving while dealing insane amount of AoE damage. And then for the rares and bosses, we will use the Plague Barrier and the Snipe. That will turn everything into a dust and make the fight super fun. So if you want to stack as high poison as possible and use one of the highest DPS builds currently in the game, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the Gemling Legionnaire. Then for the first skill we have the barrage with the support gem such as the perpetual charge and the premeditation. Then second we get the Herald of the Plague with no support gems. Then next we get the sniper mark with inspiration and profusion. Then next we have the poison burst arrow with corrosion, comorbidity, deadly poison and the chain. Next up we have the Plague Barrier with the Chaos Mastery, Physical Mastery and the Magnified Effect. Next we got the Gas Arrow with the Persistence, Scatter Shot and the Fount of Mana. Next we have the Snipe with the Heft and Venom, Window of Opportunity, Long Shot and the Arcane Tempo. Next we got the Rain of Arrows with the Withering Touch and Inevitable Critical. And finally for the last ones we are using the Wind Dancer and the Blink. And for both of them we don't want to select any support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the Plague Barrier and the Gas Arrow to delete enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, until we get to these three, so the remorseless, feel no pain and the battle hardened. Next up we go to the right side and get both of these, so heavy ammunition and the blur. Then next let's keep going and we want to take both of these, so hold focus and the master fletching. Then now let's keep going and again we want to take these three, so stacking toxins, escape velocity and the freedom of movement. Then from here let's now go to the bottom part and we want to get the wasting and the fast acting toxins. And then from here we can go back all the way from where we began and just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the adaptive capability, then second get the integrated efficiency, then third we want the crystalline potential, and then finally for our last one we want to go with the implanted gems. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we want to first of all go to the right side, and then get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get to the second keystone called the Unstable Energies. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this we have even more passives, which in order you unlock them doesn't really matter. So again it's up to you, and this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium, then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally we have our breach setup. Then now let's move over to our next part, which is the gear, and the weapon of our choice is the expert short bow, and for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, then also add physical damage to attacks, then even more accuracy, reduced attribute requirements, and grant life per every enemy hit. Then also we have an offhand called the Penetrating Quiver, with 100% chance to pierce an enemy, and this is a huge deal which will not only give us more kills, but also increase our damage, which I will explain in just a second. And then for more we want to add physical damage to attacks, increase projectile speed, increase damage with the bow skills, and more to attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Face Mask with the evasion and energy shield, and for more we got even more increased evasion and energy shield. Then max life, more intelligence and resistances like fire and cold. Then for the chest we have the advanced studded vest with a lot of evasion rating, and for more we want even more evasion, more to spirit, which is the best place to get a high spirit count from, and then also we get fire, lightning and chaos resistances. Then for the belt we have the mail belt with reduced flask charges. And for more we need armor, max life, max mana, cold and lightning resistance, as well as life per every second. Then for gloves we got the advanced doubled gauntlets with armor and evasion. And for more we want even more evasion and armor. Then max life, increased critical damage bonus, increased attack speed and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the advanced embossed boots with evasion. And for more we want increased movement speed, which again is the main place to get it from. Then also evasion rating and fire and cold resistances. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with the fire resistance. And for more we got more accuracy, increased evasion, max life, leech off physical attack damage as life, and also gain mana per every enemy killed. While then on the second one we have the topaz ring with the lightning resistance. And for more we need add physical damage to attacks, max life, more accuracy, lightning resistance and life regen per every second. And then finally for the amulet we got the bloodstone amulet with max life. And for extra stats we need evasion, max energy shield, max life, more to strength, and more percentage of damage taken we now recoup as life. So no matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all mark the enemy, which afterwards we want to use the rain of arrows, or pretty much spam any other skill that can crit. But without the crit there's no frenzy charges gained, which means less damage if we don't set it up. So then once we have anywhere from 1 to 3 of these charges, then now we want to consume them with the barrage skill, and then use the snipe, which in return will do massive amounts of damage. But then also, as far as weak enemies go, for them we simply want to run around and keep poisoning them, while then when we hit the plague barrier, it will blow them up even further.